everyone for the patience. Today we'll be discussing the top core skills that is needed. We have talking about the coping skill, general strategies that we need. We talk about open enhancement. Now we want to look at strategies to craft and increase wisdom for improving trauma. That's from relieving suffering from trauma and from bring about healing and to bring about recovery in the process. So that's what this module we try to take us
What is
through.
wrong with my
This is module 4. We have started, we have taken from 0 to 3 so far, and we'll be looking at module 4. And this will be our like our fifth session in this training. And in this concept, we are going to look at the understanding about wisdom, looking at it from the ancient concept, and uh, and then we'll also look at it about what are the complex nature that wisdom is made up of and what is the correct understanding of wisdom. This is very essential for us to be able to appreciate the scientific. This is very essential for us to be able to appreciate the scientific understanding of what wisdom entails. By definition, wisdom is a complex, multidimensional personality trait characterized by prosocial behaviors, emotional regulation, and self-reflection. And the reason why this definition is essential is that most people might think that being intelligent is equivalent to wisdom, but they are not the same thing. That being intelligent is good, but being wise is a different form and is essential for one to be able to make use of that intelligence in a way that will not only be beneficial to the self, but to also help the others. And also, wisdom encompasses the following domains: the cognitive, the affective, the reflective, the practical, and ethical. The cognitive, just like intelligence, it has to do with deep knowledge, deep analytical thinking. But unlike intelligence or most of the other form of intelligence, affective aspect of wisdom do with emotional regulation and empathy, and this may be related to only one form of wisdom, emotional intelligence, but that may not be encompassing as the wisdom of utilizing. Another aspect of wisdom is the ability to reflect, to contemplate, to be able to appreciate self-awareness and take perspective from others. This is very essential. If you, if as one become wise, one is able to see from the multiple uh, aspects of a phenomenon. One is not coming with a rigid view, but one is looking at the multiple aspects of it. And also it's practical because it allows one to be able to apply what one have, the in-depth of it, to real life situation, to bring about changes in real life situation for the better, not for the worse, to bring about relief in the pain, in the burden an individual or group of people might be carrying. And it's also embrace the ethical compass where somebody continue to grow in his moral compass. And that is why wisdom as a complex that we'll be looking at, it helps to facilitate good decision making. Let me put it optimal decision making, or what we call good enough decision making. It facilitates problem solving and it improves life management entirely. And the because based on the definition, that's why it's good for us to see what are the dimensions of wisdom, which is the second aspect of what we have to look at, and for us to be able to appreciate what wisdom is. Because the earlier part I've given us, that's this first slide, is talking about the many views that people have looked at wisdom, and the religious view of wisdom. When we talk about the wise King Solomon, there are many religious stories that encompass things like that. There are many folklore stories that talk about wisdom, and I appreciate that. So, but all these look at in the aspect of the cognitive, the affective, the reflective, the practical, and the ethical. And that is where most of the ancient understanding of wisdom tried to relate about. But the modern concept, the scientific look at also appreciate it from this perspective. However, he tries to look at wisdom just like we have looked at hope earlier on, that wisdom is multidimensional too. It comprises about 7 elements of it that make up wisdom. And there are research that have make it up to show the loading of all these factors in trying to contribute or to be part of the building blocks of what wisdom is, the foundation of what wisdom. And if one keep growing in this, then it must suggest that one is becoming wiser. And one of them is decisiveness. And this have to do with the right way to make decision, the proper decision, the good enough decision making that will not make one to become a procrastinator, and that will not make one to people that always jump to conclusion, but to allow one to make the right form of decisions in what one is going to look at. Another aspect of wisdom from a scientific viewpoint is self-reflection that help one to explore one's behavior, look at it in depth, and be able to give it the right perspective that it should be. That one will not look at, for instance, when they say we should love ourselves, the individual will be able to exploit the right way that the kind of love they are talking about is not the one that will lead to narcissistic self love, which most maybe some coach and all those motivational will tell you you have to love yourself. But most people tend to interpret this to the extent that it may lead to self love. I mean, to excessive self love, and that excessive self love will lead to narcissism, that narcissistic love about oneself. Whereas in self reflection, it helps one not just to love, but to be able to show kindness to oneself. And that makes a difference between the kind of love that people will be encouraged to have and the kind of one that self reflection will be able to bring. So that be able to bring the balance so that the individual can be able to exploit the value of what this is like in their life. The third aspect of wisdom is what's called prosocial behavior, which is those things that we have learned in so many other ways, some social psychology and all that, that we know there is the tendency in all of us to try to help the other. But certain circumstances might have dampened that in us. Certain circumstances might have make us to look the other way. Also social variables might make one to doubt what is happening. But on an instinct level, the ability to always want to be helpful to others, to show uh, to show that self of ours that we can feel for others, we can become compassionate to others. That is there, and that prosocial behavior are there that that we always try to do, where can interpret the genuineness of the situation. Another aspect of wisdom is called social advising, and that is how to be able to give good advice. And this we can see in so many folklore, so many wisdom sayings, so many scriptural quotes and all those things. And those things can guide of how to go about giving advice. But in social advising, there are those things that teleguide it, that try to make a distinction for it, that make it to be essentially different in terms of just trying to give advice. But in this case, is the advice is going to be based on available data. And the data is in the sense that the person giving the advice have those big data that the person leans upon and be able to give that. For instance, we know in our in our culture and in our history, part of the thing we know is that when it comes to choosing a life partner, in the past, we just go to one of those aged elderly women in the community who seems to know all the available spouse around, male or female, knows their different characteristics and is able to guide and say, no, this is whom you, that's a form of social advising. But this individual has lived in the community, has experienced, has saw these people grow up, has witnessed them in their strength and their weaknesses, in their joy and their sadness. And is able to look that based on his or her own experience of growing up and be able to see what that marital life looks like for him or her, is able now to guide and give social advice that is helpful and that will be guide towards proper matchmaking. Of course, there are many variants of this these days, and if there's no good proper social advising concept in it, then it might lead to more disaster. Another aspect of wisdom is emotional regulation, and this is one of those skills that is needed that help one to be able to achieve grounding at STP, so that no matter the pressure, it's important to be able to stay calm so that one will be able to assess the situation, reflect properly, and now guide towards making the right decision along the way. Another form components of wisdom as one of the building was acceptance of divergent perspectives. And this is ability to understand the viewpoint of different people. So that, for instance, like those typical picture they used to say, when somebody is standing in front of three, another person standing behind it, and someone might be looking at it, or somebody, another one standing on top of it, another one standing below it. One person might be looking at it as M, another one might be looking at it as E, another one might be looking at it as three, another one might be looking at it. So in so many ways, maybe sigma or epsilon. So this accepted that there may be many divergent viewpoints, and wisdom help one to be able to navigate all these divergent viewpoints in trying to analyze and understand what this individual or this interaction is about and is going through. And one of the last aspects that is added more about wisdom is the concept of spirituality. And this is trying to guide us how to derive strength for spirituality. Science is not uh, against spirituality. Science help to guide, and science help to provide that spirituality is one of those things that is needed and it's very essential for us to have. And through that way, science help us to know that spirituality is what most human beings strive for, but it defines it and separates it from religiosity and try to make it like that their religiosity or people who don't believe in religious they also look for a similar vehicle, a similar means to be able to aspire and grow and move to attain spirituality. So in this concept, science helps us to know that religious religion is a means to attain spirituality. And people who are not religious can also aspire and attain spirituality. So they can choose so many other vehicles to attain spirituality. And that's why science, the concept between the two become separable. While most religion and ancient women try to merge the two together and believe that when people are religious, mean spirituality. But we know even from our experience that we have people who hold public offices, they steal, they tell lies, they do all that, and yet they are highly religious. So that is telling us that their religiosity does not translate to their spirituality. And because spirituality, from which is what one of those things that serve as the high moral grant that people are looking and aspiring for. Spirituality helps to teleguide and help to bring about it. And from the scientific viewpoint, spirituality is defined as what the search for sense of meaning and purpose in life. And meaning is very essential to our life because the more meaning we have, the more appreciation we can have about what life is, and the more it helps us to open our horizon and be able to see, though there may be challenges now, and this might be why it is. And another bigger part of wisdom, apart from having a sense of meaning, is having a sense of purpose. Because when we have meaning with that sense of direction, then it can also be overwhelming for the individual that what is the meaning after that I understand it now, where is this taking me, or what does this imply, what steps should I take? And the sense of purpose is very essential, and spirituality connotes these two. Also from a scientific viewpoint, when we look at spirituality, it also look at that it has two footings, it has two pillars on its own too. One aspect of spirituality from what everybody look at, which we usually talk about, is about the belief system. And understanding the belief system we need to do that will be able to help us to know how they make meaning in life and how they search for purpose in life. But the other aspect of it, which is silent, which we don't usually talk about or promote, is the aspect of self-care. And that is very essential because without proper self-care, the aspiration to become more spiritual can be challenged, can even be reversed for individual. For instance, somebody who is sick will find it difficult to be able to say, I want to become more spiritual in this process because he needs to be healthy. He wants to strive to that. And that is why trying to attain and push that spirituality is essential. The self care, which is one of the pillars, is also promoted while also promoting the nurturing of the right kind of belief and moving forward. Uh, then also, uh, having this background of what the components of wisdom are from the scientific viewpoint, then one of the things we want to look at. So when we talk of wisdom and looking at it that it has this so many facets, how can we grow it? And that's why the cultivation of wisdom it is about. It's about because if you don't have this understanding, it's a look at why we talk about wisdom and trauma. But with this understanding we have, then we can also look at it that yes, wisdom and trauma do share things together. And that is what why it is good that because whenever there is trauma, it can challenge all these components of wisdom. It challenge our decision making. It challenge how we reflect. That instead of us to reflect, it make us to be brooding. That they'll be thinking more about the negative part of it, and that's what take all our time, and that's what the mind dwells upon, rather than to reflect and look. Yeah, this is bad. It's bring pain. I feel the pain. What is the lessons there? What am I supposed, or what is the next step to take? That reflective aspect might be missing. That contemplative aspect might be missing. And wisdom is telling us that yes, instead of us to brood and look and be thinking only on the negative aspect, we should look at the two sides, and that should help us to see a way out and see that there's a need to take step and move forward. And that's also when it comes to trauma. It's also that the tendency is for us to see that no, I will just I accept whatever has happened and do nothing about it and let it be. But it's telling us to be pro-social behavior, to help others. And while we are trying to do good for others, we also get good back in the process. That while we're also trying to look that though I will never help people like that, whatever. But as time goes on, we realize that that's robbing us of the wisdom of what our humanity is about. The same thing is social advising. That instead of what to say, okay, I will because I gave good advice, that's why I go through this bad experience, this traumatic thing that happened. Then I will learn not to do that again. Then it derives us of those things that should make us to be wiser, to make us to be able to appreciate that no, there may be different situation, but this is the way to navigate it. And the big data, that trauma itself is also contributing to us. We lost the value of it. And also, it also teaches us that whenever there is trauma, we need to be able to stay calm. And those things we have learned in the beginning when we are talking about those coping aspects and about engagement, about grounding, those things we are doing is supposed to help us to also regulate the emotion. And when we do them, it's also helping to contribute to it that the more we master this and be able to stay calm under pressure, then it help us to get wise so that we can see the lessons, we can see the direction, we can see the perspective that is bringing to us, and it help us to be able to navigate and understand what is really in front of us. And the same way with spirituality, that instead of robbing us of that yearning to get better meaning and purpose and move towards the right uh, focus in terms of our spiritual growth, will not be robbed of that. And that is wisdom rob us of all those seven facets in one way or the other. And that is why, in order for us to be able to grow, we need to learn to cultivate it. And in trauma management, wisdom involves resilience, it involves meaning making, and it involves transcendence. And in this, when we appreciate this, then we know that when we want to manage trauma, then we should be able to increase someone's resilience, which might be cellulostasis, which is one of the process of what we do to improve someone's resilience, and that is how to adapt and grow in the adversity, which is very essential. And that's one of the things wisdom pushes us to. The wisdom also guides us that whatever has happened, we should learn to start making meaning from it, to derive the significance from these challenges. And what does it lie? Even now, that if we don't understand the meaning of it, that it also guides us that we need to give it time to grow, because the meaning will come instead of us to go into paralysis, to go into that state of fight, fright, or flight, or appeasement. It tells us no, we don't need to do that. That that this process will be over because there is time for maturity, and we should keep looking for the meaning of it. And that's one of the reasons why the person that wrote that book, Man Search for Meaning, is one of the very insightful book that has been written. Then another thing is to look at transcendence, which comes to bring us about that aspect of what it is to grow spiritually. And the transcendence bring about considering the broader perspective so that we can look at it from the self uh, care to that of the care for others, that of the relationship we share with self and with others, and with our spirituality, I mean, with our supreme being, or with the universe, for those that may want to call it that way. So it helps us to be able to look at it that way. And Another thing that when we look at wisdom is to also look at wisdom will not only facilitate resilience and recovery, but it will help us to do this in the right way when we can interpret it in the proper way. And that is whatever is happening, wisdom help us to have a cognitive integration of it, putting them together. That's how we can help individuals to process and reframe their traumatic experiences. This is very vital and is one of those things that wisdom will allow us to be able to do. Another thing that is essential for us to be able to appreciate is the emotional regulation of what wisdom is. And we have talked about this, which promote the empathy, self-compassion, and we'll be able to see the individual can see that it's not that I don't love myself, but I need to learn how to show kindness to myself. And also the reflective aspect come back because that way it help the individual or whoever we're engaged with that okay, we want to make meaning, but to make meaning we have to do it in the right way. It has to help us to grow, and that way, post traumatic growth comes from that. And that is why not everybody that experience trauma may go down because they may be able, from the wisdom they already have as part of their built up strength, they'll be able to weather the storm of the trauma and be able to emerge and grow and move forward from it. And the social connection that we yearn for, which is part of wisdom, it helps us to bring this and help us to foster, appreciate what social relationships are, the social network are, and how to appreciate those that bring empathic care for us and those that do otherwise. Uh, and among the well recognized practices that have been able to help in cultivating some part of wisdom, which is about self kindness. We'll talk about one of the elements of wisdom when we look at it here. We talk about self reflection, which is about how to explore oneself and able to help oneself. And one of the things that we can do as a practice in trying to appreciate self kindness is what we call the loving kindness meditation. And this is one of the things that when we look at when we're talking the coping mechanism, we talk about deep breathing, one of the exercise we can do for grounding. But it is also one of the things we can do with some addition that will help us to achieve this meditation. And that is why if you, I'm sure some of us will be familiar with those things. Other people will say breathe in, that you are breathing kindness to yourself, you are bringing softness, and breathe out, you are bringing out the badness, and you're one is bringing out the pain, the suffering. So and those kind of loving kindness, that's why it can be practiced in that way. And that is what this exercise is about. So I'm just giving us one of such things that is being used in order to promote wisdom, so that the individual can find that oh, breathe in peace to me, breathe out all the pain out of me goes out, breathe in peace to me, breathe out I'm bringing out all the pain and confusion inside me. So and the individual continues saying this mantra and doing the deep breathing in the process, and the people get are able to get this. And this can be practiced at the start or end of a session to foster emotional safety. Another form of activity we can use to cultivate self compassion and self kindness is gratitude journaling. And this is one of the things ultra brief therapy talks about too, but it might be looked at from a different perspective. And in this, we can ask the client to note one small positive event or personal strength they have. Despite the trauma, the good things still happen, and that way we can help them to review this briefly in sessions to counter the trauma related negativity. This is one of those skills that wisdom teaches us, even though it has been used more in positive psychology. But this is from the concept and value of wisdom. And that's why learning about wisdom and seeing the scientific viewpoint and how it is being used is very essential. Some other way people do gratitude journal is to look at it at the end of the day. What are the goods that happened to me today? Let me count them, and let me count three, or let me count five, or let me count 10. And oh, if all these goods happen to me today, then all that I'm worried about, this might not be totally true that I'm doomed or the world has come to an or it's my for all those negative thinking, all those that come, then this will help one to be able to overcome it. Another thing that we'll look at is self-compassion break that we can give ourselves, where we can teach our clients that whenever they stress, they say this is a moment of suffering. They have to acknowledge it. But suffering is part of life, which is what wisdom about. It helps us to see that happiness, which is an emotion, is a mix of both joy and sadness. So the ability to see that suffering is part of life. So instead of me to promote only the suffering part of life, let me be kind to myself. And by this, the individual is acknowledging and is trying to boost happiness in the process to see that yes, this sad part of it which makes us of the happiness, but there can also be joy to derive from it. And that is why the individual will say such mantra. This is a moment of suffering. Suffering is part of life. May I be kind to myself. So the individual is reminding himself, I need to show kindness to myself. And that way the individual helps to grow kindness to self, and which is one of those elements in wisdom. Another aspect of wisdom is what we call emotional regulation. And this can also be achieved in what I've discussed earlier on and what we have discussed in our coping strategy. That we can use the breathing technique which we have discussed earlier on. And it's essential because it helps us that the moment we use it well, then we can be able to use to achieve it. And we can also in this to regulate the emotion, we might change the word that we put in it, a mantra. Breathe in, calm. Breathe out, fear. So the individual that associates what he's doing, that the moment I breathe in slowly, I'm breathing in calmness to myself. I'm bringing in breathing else to myself. And the moment I'm breathing out, I'm exhaling all the fears. I'm exhaling all the pain. Another thing that happen emotional regulation is cognitive reappraisal. And this we have also talked about under problem solving skills that may be essential for us to have and use in coping skills. And this is also part of what wisdom teaches. And wisdom helps us to re-emphasize it that this thing we are learning are just not learning for the sake of it. There are things that we need to practice, the things that we need to master, and we keep using it to help us to survive. And that is why, in form of trauma, we want to use the SSTA. That the individual will need to say, "Stop! I need to notice these traumatic thoughts. Let me slow down." Then the individual do deep breathing so that the person can see the level of tension in the body and be able to reduce the level of tension. Then the individual will think, is there another way to look at this? And from that, the individual will act. And they choose a hopeful refrain. It is, I survived. And since I've survived, it's also so that I have strength. Uh, and that is also very helpful. One of the way we can regulate emotion. In this particular one, I remember one of such clients I've seen before who was kidnapped on a farm, and she spent about 11 days or so with the kidnapper, and she was released after paying a huge sum. She couldn't relax. She was sent from a general practitioner to come to the psychiatric hospital to come and see, and it is from there we had the encounter. And it is during this that we are able to help the individual to start having a reframe of it. We have to help the individual to look at the thought. We tell the person to reduce the breathing, and we have to let's look at it from another way. And that not all people who are from this particular ethnic group commit this crime. So if we generalize it, then it will keep bringing the pain. So let's look at it from another perspective, and let's choose to open the frame with many people you met there. From your recall, some were killed there, but you are alive, so you survived it, and that shows the care, the strength that you have. That shows the challenges that you have with your spirituality. That shows that no, God cares about it. It make it to come out of it. So that your spirituality shouldn't go at that and shouldn't help you to move. And if you need to move forward, you should reframe it so that you don't hate all a group. A man commit a crime, you should not hate the whole group because a man is a man and a race is a race. So we should not pass the crime of a man to generalize to the whole race, which and the more the hatred go, the more the pain grows too. And so we're able to practice this in session, and it's helpful for the patient. And with time, the person move and be able to recover. Another way that the individual can do with to be able to achieve emotional regulation is to do what is called the body scan, and the individual can do it to identify which part of the body there is more tension is and what needs to be done. This is one of those practices that can also be used to achieve grounding. And this is the individual will try to look from either head to toe or toe to head, and the individual will look at the toe. And the individual will first of all learn to know what tension means in the body and what relaxation means. And we can ask the individual, fold your arm. How do you feel what it is when you fold it tightly? You say, yes, that is what tension is. release your hands. When you, well, I mean, open your hands. When you open them, do you still feel the tension? No, that's what relaxation is. So now let's start that from our toe to the earth. Tense the toes, relax it. Then from there, we start moving up until we get to the head. That the individual would squeeze the front of the head, try to relax it. So that the individual will now be able to know, okay, when I'm doing, where did I feel the tension in my body more? And using that, you can focus on that and do the deep breathing. And that way, you will be able to use that to tense and to relax the tension. The body scan help us to be able to identify which part of the body feels the tension more. And through that, we can be able to bring calmness to that part of the body and bring about relief from that. And when it comes to decision making, which is one of the elements in wisdom, is one of the way we can look at it is when there are challenges, is to teach the individual how to use decisiveness to go about it. And that is one of such to use what but both and thinking. In this, it helps us to challenge what is happening, that we can feel pain and we can also feel relief from it. And the reason is that from the concept that I brought about that emotion happiness, that happiness is a mixture of both joy and sadness. And that is why in the psychology of understanding emotion, that what at times we might look at that when we feel that when people feel sad, it means that they will never experience joy. But no, we can experience both because they are not opposing emotions. These are emotions that can exist at the same time. So and they do that, and that's why when we teach them that, we can then let them know that okay, you can know I am hot and I am healing, and that's what the exercise want to do. So we want to bring all those statements they've told us about their pains, their sufferings. Then we help them to weave those statements that will can coexist with it, that will talk about their strength of growth. So we bring it from their experience. We don't manufacture all for them. So that then they can see, oh, I'm still the same person that I'm having this too. So by the time I can appreciate this, then I can know, oh, there's a balance I need to do. I should not focus only on this side that keep dragging me up. I need to look at the other side. That's why by helping them that we are helping them to reframe their thoughts so that you can help them to see about what has happened and be able to accept and be able from there. And once acceptance is reached, catharsis is reached, then we keep building and reframing continue. Another form of exercise that can be done is the uncertainty tolerance exercise. And that is one of the things that we can ask them, what is one small step that you can take today, even if I don't know the outcome? And this is very helpful. And this is also one of those in behavioral activation that somebody is depressed, you ask them, okay, you are depressed, just call somebody today. I don't feel like, just call. Okay, I've called, I don't feel happy. No, don't worry, just make the call. Then do it again. Then do it again. And as the person keep doing it with time, the person started seeing changes. Because one of the things the depressive is that it's restraining the individual to that uh, self reclusion. And now, by making the attempt, despite the pain, despite the challenges and all those that come with it, but for making that attempt, for taking that step, then the individual started challenging the restraint, the bonding, the invisible, the invisible burden and load the individual is carrying, and that way the individual started taking steps and addressing it, even though it may not attach any meaning to it, but that the individual know I need to take this right step, I need to take this step. Whether it gives me relief today, that's not what it is, thing, but it's something that I need to take. And this is a thing that we also work with together with the client that will help them that okay, irrespective that this is one things that you are not doing again because of this. You used to do them before. They are helpful to you before, but this has stopped you. So let's start doing them. But have done them in the past. I am not getting the same feelings, the same response I used to get before. No, irrespective of that, but let's keep taking that. And that the that start taking those right step again. And with time, the that will start getting the kind of feeling and the kind of response that is accepted. I mean, that the individual expect and be able to grow from that. And another form of this thing that we also look, we talk about the self, that's in terms of self reflection. And one of the thing that we can do to promote self-reflection so that that way we can grow uh, wisdom is through humor. And we have talked about the gallows humor before. And you remember that humor that we show about the gallows man who's about to behead a man, and the man is telling him that I feel a itch on my buttocks, on the left right buttocks of me. Can you scratch it for me? So, but we have said that to use this humor, we remember the rule that to use it, it must be something that will bring calmness to the individual. It must be appropriate, and it may not bring laughter, but it will bring some kind of normalization of the experience of the pain for the individual, that yes, human being do experience it, and that should not stop us. That despite this experience, it shouldn't be enough to rob us from feeling joy again. It shouldn't be enough to rob us from feeling cool about ourselves again. It shouldn't be enough to rob us from feeling good about ourselves again. Yes, despite this that have happened, we can keep, and this kind of humor will be helpful and will be essential for us to use. And another one practice we can do is to do show and tell adaptation. And this one we can ask to share an object that represents resilience or humor. If you remember when we were in the coping session, we'll practice an exercise too where we are trying to talk about rapport. But in this one, this will take a different dimension. We're not just trying to find, we're trying to look around you. Which object you can see that will tell you about what resilience means, and what they will tell you that can make you feel joy, that can make you feel laughter within you. And that way, we're trying to use that to explore and lighten, to explore the strength of the individual. When you say, okay, around me, I can see my pen. Oh, what does your pen mean now? Then, oh, it's telling me that I still have a career. So that is telling about resilience, about strength that we can explore. Then we can tell me more about the career. So now, then we need to do more for us to continue with this career. We should not abandon this career because of this trauma. The same way we can look at it. Look at this. What object in your environment can you look at? Oh, I have this cap. Each time I see it, it makes me feel laugh. It makes me laugh. Oh, and that is trying to help us to see one of these we can use to lighten the emotional load, the emotional burden within the session, and the individual can now keep practicing that when you go, so that it will help the individual, so that way the individual is reflecting, and is by reflecting the individual is also seeing the joy despite the pain. And looking at the aspect of spirituality, one of the things we can do to promote spirituality in terms of wisdom and is to bring about more connectedness for the individual is to use the mantras of common humanity. And the common humanity says that we're all human beings. Bad things happen, and it happens to human being and to other things too. But because I'm a human being, to not happen, then that is showing that I'm not a man. So the common humanity mantra is very important for us to use. An example is that over others have survived this, so can I. And that way the individual can see that things has happened bad to many people, but that is not the end of their story. It helps them to move forward. And that help that to see that, oh, I can challenge it, I can fight it. Another thing that can help in spirituality growth is the concept of forgiveness practice. And this is very essential for us to be able to live. We do talk about forgiving the others, but what about forgiving the self? Because when we go through trauma, I think we put a lot of blame, self blame, with guilt, we have self guilt, we shame ourselves. And because we do all this, it's like it's my fault that this happened to me. And when we do all that, then it makes it difficult for us to get move from there. And that's why the concept of self forgiveness is also there. So forgiveness practice is not only for the others, but also for the self. I remember one of the things but an example we can do is that to practice a 1 minute visualization, that you that can look at it. Oh, for me to forgive myself, I realize this pain. I mean, I release this pain for my own peace. So the leader can say, okay, this is what is causing me pain, and I'm releasing it for my own peace. And the leader can say it over and over so that it can bring peace, and the leader feel the peace within. But what I'm trying to say, one of the experience in one of the encounter of the practice of forgiveness is one of such cases I've seen about a lady who was raped as a child, and the lady keep blaming herself that it's my fault that I'm raped. There is because I'm a harlot. That's why I'm raped. If not, there are many other young girls who are not raped. But the lady faithful forget that no, you are raped. It's not your fault. You are a child. You cannot protect yourself. And the people that did it are the one who's to be blamed. And that's why, by the definition, rape is a crime. So it's those people that should face the music, that the one who should feel the guilt for the harm they've done to you. You should not be the one to carry the harm. And that way, the lady trying to learn, oh, this is what it means. This is the right interpretation I should have. Then the individual can start learning, oh, I need to forgive myself. And this is how I practice self forgiveness. I need to let this go. I need to know that I should stop interpreting that way so that I will stop using the wrong type of coping to try to deal with it. Because the lady keep blaming herself and they keep pushing the lady into more and more harmful way. You keep bringing more and more about wrong decision making. You keep making the person feel I'm not pure. So whatever happened, then I should not bother about it. Use of substance, indiscriminate sex and all those things come in. But when the individual understand that no, for this guilt you are carrying, there is need to practice self forgiveness, and that help the individual to be able to overcome that. Another thing that we can do when it comes to an aspect of spirituality and improving our connectedness is mentorship and storytelling. And in mentorship and storytelling, we can this come to help us to learn from others' experience. And it's very essential that through that way, the individual gets to see what happened to other people, can do mental modeling of it, the individual can embrace it and utilize that to be able to say, okay, I can use this to solve my own problem and move this way. And that helps us to bridge what happened in the past, what is then the present, and in the future. And that is what those storytelling will help us to see. A good story will have a past, will have a present, and will tell about what happened in the future. Of course, it might end about happily ever after. That's still about the future, and people can imagine that. But it tells about the troublesome past, the solution that come in the present, and the expectation to have of the future. And those good stories is one of those things that can also be utilized to help the individual to have a sense of what connectedness is, what spirituality is, what forgiveness is, and that way and to be able to achieve this we will best practice as support groups or community storytelling events. These are very helpful, and that is why, if you remember, for those that are not generation XYZ, where the Tales by the Moonlight they experience, that's part of what that meant storytelling is about the village square where everybody sit down, or in the semi-urban area where people come out by the evening, where there is never have taken light, there is heat in the house. Everybody come out and sit outside the front of the house, sit down together, spread the mat, or put down the stool, and somebody tell the story, and everybody listen to the story, and the story. So the story, and that is the concept of that will be helpful. And it's also that's why it's also good to look that okay, can you tell me a story from that can illustrate the experience of what you're going through? If the person don't have, you can bring help them find a common story that can help in that. One of those such is we can look through the scripture and look at what's the story of Joseph like, or what they call Yusuf in the Quran. And you can look at that story to look, oh, this is story about trials, tribulation, but there is triumph at the end of the day. So such story can look at the past, the present, and the future. And it's a full story of a lifetime. And the reader can try to see it, oh, I'm part of humanity too. So this part of my common humanity that trauma occur is part of what should happen. Learning to forgive myself, I need to do that so that I can move forward. And this story I'm learning is telling I can learn from this experience. Look at it. What is the process this has gone, and use that process to help myself. And in the process, I need support groups. I need social support. I need the right network to be able to go. And those form the leverage the individual will need, and will help them to be able to identify such kind of people and be able to learn so that it can help them grow in that. This is a primer on wisdom, that wisdom is very essential. But for it to be used, is for us to be able to look at it in this perspective. That wisdom, for it to be able that we can look at some of the things we can do for us that if we encourage our client to do this, then we're helping them to build these skills, and that will help them to build wisdom, and that will be helpful for them to fight their trauma or other challenges there, or to get more healthy in life. And one of them is to seek purpose over pleasure. So we help them guide that when we're looking for now, it's not just about things that are only pleasurable, but what is the purpose over this pleasure? And that is why we can help them to focus on activities that give them a sense of meaning rather than immediate gratification. And this is one of those vital things in what is called discipline, where the individual can know instead of me to get what I want right away, but if I delay it, then I will get the double. And that is one of those things that when we look at some of the experiments that have been carried out in the past in the concept about this, that is talking about purpose over pleasure. There are people who are able to delay gratification. We have all said that, but people are able to delay it. Those people are able to look at, okay, I need to go through this pain so that I can get a better outcome later. Because if I don't delay this, for instance, someone is craving and this person is using substance to try and deal with the trauma. So if you are able to tell the individual that if you delay not jumping to go and use despite the craving has a duration too. And once the duration is over, then the craving goes down or it disappears. And that is one of the lesson in delaying gratification. There may be many ways to do it. It might not be only through talking therapy, but helping the people to be able to see that it help them to be able to say, oh, there is a meaning I can make, and this will help me to find purpose rather than for me to say, oh, I must get relief right away. So that if you help them to be able to overcome, they were helping them to treat their pain and trauma. Another thing that is there is to help them to cultivate empathy, and that is what's called the daily act of kindness that we want them to practice. For them to be able to show kindness, which is the prosocial behavior that we talk about. And letting them do this, it helps them to tell them learn about what empathy is. And they can use that to help themselves to show self kindness and self love. You can also help them to counteract loneliness. And we encourage them that you need more connectedness. But you may get this from your community. Let's look in within your community. Who are the people that can help you achieve this? And we can help them through that, looking at the family circle. That will draw a circle around the person. Who are the people in your family that are helpful to you? They'll be in the family. Who are the people among your friends that are helpful to you? They may be in the family. Or are there objects or things in within the family or closer to you that seems to be more helpful than others? Then you look at it and you can include them in there. And they can look. There may be people in the family who might not be helpful. Then they will be, or they might be in the circle that only that the help they give is not more than some other people who are closer to the individual in the circle. Or they might be on the circle itself. Then they are another year, or they might be outside the circle because they can. So you help them to be able to identify people that they need to get back to who have done this for them, and that way we help them to link together to integrate. And we can even ask with the consent of this person to invite them so that they can be able to appreciate and play the role for this. And that's where we're helping them to improve their wisdom, because that's part of wisdom, the prosocial behavior. I will also teach them how to embrace diverse opinion. That's to have, we can teach them, okay, have a conversation twice a week with someone who holds different view from you, and try to understand their perspective without debating right or wrong. This is helpful. And this, even on our own, we can see we belong to so many WhatsApp page, social media page now. There are many people who just hold only one view. No matter what, they just keep bombarding everybody and they want everybody to follow that view. And it's that we don't need to challenge them, but we can try to understand why they hold that view. And that way we can say, okay, that's their perspective. I don't need to walk myself over this. I don't need to punish myself over this. I don't need to even agree with their perspective, but I don't need to fight over it. I don't need to punish myself over that. And that's to embrace diverse opinions. I'm not saying it's an easy thing, but this is one of those things that we can help them to see, and hopefully they can start seeing a difference in what trauma is. We can strive for emotional regulation, and We have talked about some of those things earlier on, including grounding, many different grounding techniques you can do, the SSTA problem solving skill, the body scan, the deep breathing. And we can also tell you that when upset, switch tasks to distract yourself and again calm. Step back, observe what is happening in a neutral, factual way, and focus on your priority. Accept what you cannot change and have the courage to change what you can. And this is very helpful. And that is one of the lessons that is inherent in the serenity prayer. And I'm sure we can all remember the serenity prayer. I'm not going to recite, but I'm sure this is one of the things that in some of the rehabilitation, serenity prayer seems to be part and parcel of it because it's helped them to start to have understanding that there will be diverse opinion, they can embrace it. They also they need things to be able to know the difference, and wisdom lies there. So that the more they can able to know that wisdom, then the more they can regulate their emotion, the more they can calm their emotion, and the more they need not to work, and the more they will know I don't need to keep doing this, that I keep harming myself. Then I need to start taking steps that will bring more healing for me, that will bring more health for me, rather than the one I'll be doing and making thoughtful decision. One of the things we can tell them that whenever there are those things is that you should avoid snap judgment. When there is decision to take your time to consider all angles before making the decision. And this can also the practice we do under problem solving skill can also be used when it comes to decision making. This decision I want to make. Okay, is this if this is the decision, which one how should I make the decision? Then we can create several these things. Priority of things to do. Though is this decision if I do it this way, what is likely the outcome? If I do it that way, what's the likely outcome? If I do it the other, what's the likely outcome? And that way it helps us to be able to see that no, if I take it this way, it may not be helpful. And for those of us who know how to do SWOT analysis, we can be able to incorporate this as part of those things that is helpful that can be done that will help the individual to know okay, this is how to make thoughtful decision. After weighing the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunity and the threat within, then we can be able to find a way forward and be able to say, okay, this is likely to bring a good outcome. Then also is to practice gratitude. We have talked about this, and each day we try to look for three good things or more that happen, things for which you are thankful or that make you feel good. We can do this and we can practice and we can open a gratitude journal. And engaging in self-reflection is very essential. We can schedule a 30 minutes twice a week to review situations that made you stressed or happy. And that way you can note the area of strength and those that need improvement. And that way we started looking at, oh, this is an aspect of me, this is who I am, and this is things that weigh me down, this is what I need to do to move forward. But for practice and in this to be able to look at it is to this come up that this will be practical for us to be able to use when we have patients that have trauma and when they come with those cognitive distortion that they may come with those trauma thinking pattern like labeling all inflated responsibility they give upon them is to look at it that okay, you have labeled yourself as not good. So let's try and counter it and say we can practice one of those skills called the Council of Elders technique that we can challenge that if looking at what your ancestor, among your wise ancestors, or a respected community leader, and your most compassionate spiritual figure were discussing in the room about your situation, what would they say about your level of responsibility? And that way we can let them start a process of reflection within their mind that this is the wisest person I've known among my lineage. This is one of the people I cherish most in the community. And this is one of the spiritual leaders I really look up to that they know this is what I'm going through and they are discussing about me. What do they say about my responsibility in this? And that way they start to challenge that sense of self guilt, self blame that the individual can tend to say no. To this level is not responsible. To this level it might be, and that way we're helping the individual to do the needed thinking, so that to be able to overcome that memory fragmentation that we talk about, and be able to they can look at the full story and be able to see, oh, it's not totally my fault that this happened. it bring this pain. I need to work hard to get over the pain and move on with my life. And if they do that, we ask them, what advice would they give? And that way, we are helping them to challenge the inflated self-response they give to themselves or the all or none thinking they are having about the situation. Another form of practice that we can do with people with trauma using wisdom is for her to help them to look at the silver lining. If an example is this, letting them know that not everything happened for a reason, but what is this experience forcing you to learn about yourself or others or life that you might not have learned otherwise? And this way, we're helping them to start to reflect and to know how to make meaning about life. Because when people say everything happens for you, we have to know not everything happens for a reason. So that way, we are trying to help them to look that okay, you need to think more. Because if you just everything happen for a reason, people leave it there. They don't really look what is the reason behind it. So, but we want them to explore it that way, and that is why to go with but. What is this experience forcing you to learn about yourself? Because that reflection need to take place. That self thinking that we want them to do about what is happening needs to take place. That self contemplation needs is essential because as that contemplate, it make them to be able to say, okay, the if everything happen for a reason, then because if they just everything happen it ends there, and that's the end, and it needs to go beyond that so that that way they can start looking for the silver lining. That okay, this has happened. What is this forcing you to know about yourself? What does it force you to know about others or life? That you might not have learned otherwise. So we don't want it to be that we know these people are bad already. No. What is there that will make you to learn that you've not learned about that, about yourself before, about those others, or about what is happening in life? And that way we are instilling the individual to be able to look at the trauma from a different perspective. And that way we can help them to restructure what they are thinking about their trauma and to move. And when it comes to one of those aspects of wisdom, which is called perspective taking, is that you can help them to practice this so that they can learn how to take perspective. For example, when you label yourself broken, what does that label cost you? Now we're trying for them to see that if they can know the cost of that, what they've lost as a result of that, then that will help them to start, oh, it's because I've done this, that's why this cost. What might be a more accurate, kinder label like healing or survival that you need. And that way, doing them, I look instead of me calling myself broken, which has cost me a lot, then I need to be kind to myself. And I need to look at myself, somebody who is healing from the trauma or somebody who has survived. And being a survivor means I have strength. People do not survive it. So that way it help one to keep growing through that and that taking perspective help one to grow through that. In essence, wisdom is one of those things that is very vital for us to learn, and it's one of the mechanisms through which this therapy takes place, and especially in practicing that aspect specifically because when people are sick, they do talk about spirituality. They do have spiritual distress, and when they come, we can use wisdom as one of these either because spirituality is one of the core dimension of wisdom. We can use it from the scientific to help them to overcome that, where they can do practice of self-kindness, where they can do practice of forgiveness, and especially self-forgiveness, which will help them to be able to deal with this. Thank you very much. And we please, if contributions